Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and I am doing my August book haul today. As you may have noticed, the books behind me have changed. Coming later this week is what I have been meaning to post for the last 2 months and just haven't for various reasons. So you will see all of the books, but because I finally have all of my books, it means I can change around where I film. So over the coming videos you will see various different places with me showing off my books because I like showing off my books, it's fun. Anyway, let's get into the books I bought in August. Several of them are from the Barnes & Noble book blowout sale, and I was pretty good. I think I only bought 8 or 9, and then several of them are from my library, some of them I got on sale, etc. But let's get to the first book. First one is Endling the First by Katherine Applegate. This is the second in her Endling series. I really enjoyed the first one, so I am very much looking forward to this, but it is a fantasy, it is middle grade, and it follows a character called an Endling, which I believe is this dog humanoid creature on the front, and she makes various other friends and they go on a quest to, well, stop her race from dying out. So that's book number 1. Book number 2 is The Trial of Lizzie Borden by Cara Robertson. This is a nonfiction about, you guessed it, Lizzie Borden. We all know the basic gave her mother 40 whacks, something something, gave her father 41. That's about all I know. But at least I do not know anything more than that, and so I'm really curious as to where this is going to go and what the actual story behind it is. Then we have Barchester Towers by Anthony Trollope. Books and Things talks about Trollope all the time, loves his stuff. And since I am trying to read a little bit more of the classics, and specifically more that I haven't necessarily heard of, I would very much like to read this, and it was half off, it was $5. I couldn't refuse. And I finished the TV show Turn, and I'm really glad I did because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I just, for whatever reason, stopped watching somewhere around season 2 and then never got back into it until this year. And then I started watching again, and Dylan Saunders is in it in the 4th season, and it just makes me very happy. But because of that, I wanted to learn a little bit more, so I bought the memoir of Colonel Benjamin Talmadge, who is one of the main characters in the Culper Spy Ring. I'm curious, it's short, I'll let you know when I get to it. I continued my trend with nonfiction, buying Every Man a Hero by Ray Lambert. This is a memoir of D-Day. As I've mentioned before, I don't have a lot of books about the European front of World War II. Specifically in the States, at least the books I've read and have heard of, they tend to focus more on the Pacific front because that was a front, as far as I'm aware, that the US was in, if not alone, then primarily alone. So I don't know a lot. I know D-Day is June 6, 1944. I know it was brutal, but I don't really know anything else about it, so I would very much like to get to this soon. Then I picked up Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. This is a Viking fantasy where Aelin is fighting in an ancient rivalry and then discovers her brother, who is supposed to be dead, fighting alongside the enemy, and we go from there. I've heard mixed things about this book, but for half off I was really curious because it sounded really good when it came out. And Adrienne Young came out with a new book recently, This Girl the Sea Gave Back, I believe it's called, which also looks pretty good and looks amazing and sounds pretty good. But I wanted to check out her writing style and see if I liked it before I invested in that, since I have heard mixed things about this one. Then I bought Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes because, shockingly, I don't have this in hardcover, or an actual physical book yet. I do have it in Spanish and English on my Kindle, but as we all know, I don't really do Kindle reading, so I finally caved and just bought the massive book. My friend Katie read this in high school. She read the first section and like the last couple of chapters for one of our English classes, and she enjoyed it. I don't know. My dad says it's a journey book with no real point. I just want to read it to figure out why we're tilting at windmills, if there's actually a reason, because from what I've heard, there's literally no reason beyond virtual insanity for this guy to be tilting at windmills. But I'm curious, and maybe I'll understand some more references. Then we have The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, which is his autobiography, I believe. Obviously, this is a very important book in the States. I have not read it yet because it is not required reading in this country. Surprise! Either way, I would very much like to read this because I am curious, and Americans' history is not really my go-to region or time of history, but I feel like I need to start reading more, so I'm gonna start with this. And then, as I've mentioned, I have read Les Mis, along with War and Peace concurrently, don't do that, but I really enjoyed Les Mis. Love the musical, the movie was fine. I think musicals that don't have any talking should be kept solely for the stage, but that's my opinion. Anyway, all of that to say, the next book is Sky Without Stars by Jessica Brody and Joanne Randell. This is a Les Mis retelling in space. And for half off, I've been eyeballing this book for probably a year since it came out, which as soon as I find the copyright page, I will tell you when it came out. It came out in, oh geez, it came out in March of this year. So I've been watching this since March, for about 6 months. Really wanted to check it out, and half off was the perfect price. Side note, believe me, I'm aware that I lost my mind again this month. It's fine, moving on. Next is The Golden Hour by Beatrice Williams. This was also Barnes & Noble. Bahamas 1941, and to be honest, I think there's a murder mystery involved, or somebody dies, there's politics. That's really all I needed to know. It looked good, sounded good. Sold. One of my pre-orders was Crown of Coral and Pearl, sorry. I believe this one came out in August. If it came out in September, my bad. But it just says 2019. This is a pre-order, I'm 96% sure it came out in August, by Mara Rutherford. This is a YA fantasy about these twin sisters, one of whom is pretty much guaranteed to marry the crown prince, but then she gets a scar, and so her twin sister is sent to the palace to marry the prince, and it turns out being a royal is not all you think it is. And we go from there. It sounded interesting, love the cover, and I also just really enjoy nautical themed books. Then some library books next. Bird with the Heart of a Mountain by Barbara Mariconda. This is set in Spain in the 1930s during the Spanish Civil War, which is not a period that I know a lot about. She is half gypsy, half Spaniard, which is fascinating because the I can't remember. Alright. I know that gypsies is derogatory. I cannot remember. It's not Romy. Anyway. They are not particularly well liked historically, or particularly in Spain. But we follow her, I believe, in Andalusia, which is the southern part of Spain. Sevilla, sorry. We follow her through the Civil War. It is a YA book, and I'm very excited. Then we also have The Silence by J. Sidney Jones, which is 1900 Vienna. Lawyer and private inquiries agent Carl Worthen puzzling over the high-profile suicide of a city councilman former client. That sounded pretty interesting to me. I do still really enjoy the history of it, and so I'm curious to see what this is like. And then one of my favorite books this month is Lord Mansfield, Justice in the Age of Reason by Norman S. Poser. This is a non-fiction book about, you guessed it, Lord Mansfield, as non-fiction books tend to give you the subject in the title. Lord Mansfield is the one who, when the Zong, which is a British slave ship in the late 1700s, threw over a third to half of its slaves and then claimed lack of water and wanted insurance for it, he told them, no, you don't get insurance for the property that you threw overboard because you passed several different water stations that you could have checked in on, so this is just fraud. He didn't make any finding on the slavery part of it or the moral part. I am very excited about this. I watched Belle with the woman who plays the Feather Duster in the live-action Beauty and the Beast. Do I remember her name? No, but I watched that movie with her, and then I went and found a book called The Zong, sometime last year I think, which is a recounting of the events of the Zong and the lawsuit surrounding it, because again, threw off a third to a half of the people on that ship just because they could, I guess. It's not a good reason, it's not even... Anyway, that book. One of my all-time favorite books is The Tiger's Wife by Thea Obrecht, and she came out with another one called Inland, which I'm very excited about. So this one is in Arizona Territory in 1893. We have a frontierswoman, Nora, who is searching for water, because I mean it's Arizona, and then a former outlaw, Luri, who sees souls who want something from him. This sounds very interesting, not like anything I've read before, and considering how much I loved The Tiger's Wife, I am extremely excited about this. Then we have The Ghost of the Mary Celeste by Valerie Martin. This is another library book, and it says, a ghost ship appears in the mist. To the struggling writer Arthur Conan Doyle, it is an inspiration. To Violet Petra, the gifted American psychic, it is a nightmare. To the death-obsessed Victorian public, it's a fascinating distraction. I'm assuming that there was a ship went down, and these 3 different people have very different reactions, and we try to figure out why it went down and how to, I guess, ameliorate the issues that arose after. Very excited. We also have The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. Like I said, I'm trying to read more classics. I did read one of George Eliot's other books, Silas Marner. I don't believe I've read anything else by her. I might have recently, and I thought it was pretty good. So I'm curious to see what else there is in George Eliot's repertoire. Then we have Shadow of the Crown by Patricia Bracewell, which is a historical fiction set in 1002. 15-year-old Emma of Normandy crosses the narrow sea to wed the much older King Ethelred of England. Historical fiction, England, what else do you need to know? I also bought Rebelborn by Amy A. Bartol. This is the third? I'm 96% sure it's the third book in her Traderborn. Yep, it's book 3. It says right on the spine. It's the third book in whatever series this is. Have I read the second one yet? No. I do want to complete the series though, because it had blossoming potential at the end of the first book, even though I didn't really like most of the first book. So I'm curious to see where this goes. I just have to get around to the second book first. I then bought The House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig, which is a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling set on a cliff by the sea, which really is all I needed to know. And then look at those end pages! They're octopi and masks, and that just is everything I want in life. I mean, not the octopi, I don't really like octopi, but that's not the point. The point is 12 Dancing Princesses, and I'm very excited because I love that fairy tale. And then I just went and bought a series, which is the, I don't know, Treasures of the Isle of the Lost series, I guess, by Melissa de la Cruz. And it starts with The Isle of the Lost, Return to the Isle of the Lost, Rise of the Isle of the Lost, and then Escape from the Isle of the Lost. I don't think you know this yet, but I absolutely adore the Descendants movies. All 3 of them. Amazing. I know that they're corny and cheesy, but I love them. And so I didn't want to leave the world after the third movie came out, so I decided I would buy the books and just dive back in. Almost there. The book is Isabel, Taking Wing by Annie Dalton. This is a Girls of Many Lands book focusing on England. I really enjoy these books. I think they're somewhere over here behind me. Yep, they're here behind me. I have 5 others. They are apparently an imprint of American Girl, which I didn't realize. I think I knew that once upon a time. But anyway, this takes place in London in 1592, which is very exciting. I really enjoy these. They are a YA, middle grade YA, kind of bordering that line, historical fiction about different girls at different times in different countries. The French one takes place during the reign of Marie Antoinette. Short as that may have been, but very excited. Those are all of the books I bought in August. I know it's a lot, but I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video.